Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. So today we are going to see second prose unit 2, A Nice Cup of Tea, written by George Orwell. You know that a cup of tea is a refreshment. When you have, you will be getting all feelings and your tiredness will go and you will feel very fresh and you will enjoy. So here George Orwell is given, you know, when if you asked process writing for a tea making, you will give something that tea making is like that. You will be having water and a tea powder, you will be boiling and you will be boiling milk and you will be adding sugar and you will say some steps that take a vessel, pour water, drop some tea leaf, boil it and then filter it, add milk and sugar and serve with a biscuit or some toast or vada or something you will be telling. But here George Orwell tells 11 points, important points, and let us see how his tea is made and how it is so nice or how it is different from the tea which we are making. Let us see in this lesson. Okay, A Nice Cup of Tea, about the author. Eric Arthur Blair, 25th June 1903, 21 January to 1950. So he was born on 25th June and 1903 and he died on 21st January 1950. Better known by his pen name George Orwell. So actually his real name is Eric Arthur Blair, but his pen name, what do you mean by pen name? So author will be having a name. All the writings he will be giving in the pen name. So that is called as pen name. He will hide his own name and he will be writing. Without mentioning his name, he will be writing, giving an imagination name. So like that he had given George Orwell, and George Orwell is his pen name. His real name is Eric Arthur Blair. Was an English novelist, essayist, journalist and critic, whose work is marked by clear prose, awareness of social inequity, opposition to totalitarianism and candid support of democratic socialism. Orwell wrote literary criticism, poetry fiction and polemical journalism. He is best known for the allegorical novel Animal Farm 1945 and Diapatrian novel 1984 and 1949. A Nice Cup of Tea is an essay by the English author George Orwell, first published in the London Evening Standard on 12th January 1946. It is a discussion of making a cup of tea, including the line his own 11 rules, every one of which is regarded as golden. See, he had written this in not as an essay or in a novel or like that. He wrote as an essay in a newspaper, in a journalism. It is called as journal. In English, author George Orwell first published in London. Where it is published? It is published in London. And Evening Standard, the publisher name is Indian Evening Standard. So Evening Standard on 12th January 1946 it was published. It is a discussion of making a cup of tea. Now every day, each home you will be making morning and evening you will be having a tea. It's a simple thing. But he made how to prepare and he gave 11 points how to make that tea. So this is the thing we will see. Use tea from India or Ceylon. So he says that you have to use tea from India or Ceylon, or that is Sri Lanka. Ceylon is called as Sri Lanka and not China. So he is telling that tea made by China must not be taken. Use a teapot, preferably ceramic. So usually we will be making a tea in a steel or aluminum or a pan. So here he is saying a milk cooker like that. But here he says that you have use a teapot. You have to use a teapot and preferably ceramic. It must be ceramic. You see in a cup or the cup Chinese people used to drink. So, that sort of thing is called ceramic. You have to make a tea in ceramic, not in other vessels. Warm the pot over direct heat. So, before you are using a teapot, you have to warm it. You must not rinse it with hot water, you have to warm it. You have to keep that thing on the grill stove on the which made of a grill, and the stove you have to put that stand and you have to keep the pot and you have to heat it. Then you have to make the tea. Tea should be strong, 6 spoons of leaves per 1 liter. So, you have to 1 liter water if you are giving, how much it must be there? 6 spoons of leaves must be there. If you are taking 1 liter of water, you have to put 6 spoons of leaves. Let the leaves move around the pot. So, it must not be put before and poured water. First you have to pour the water and then you have to put, so the tea leaves must be just floating. It must not go and settle down in the pot. Take the pot to the boiling kettle. So, take the pot to the boiling kettle. You have to take the pot to the boiling kettle. Stir or shake the pot. Drink out of a tall mug shaped. So, you have to take a cup, not a small one. Straight away you have to pour. You must not strainer or what. Then you have to pour the thing in a cylinder cup, not other shapes of cup. Straight cylinder cup you have to pour. It is mug like shape, and you have to pour tea in that straight without filtering, and then you have to drink. Drink out of the tall mug shaped tea cup. Don't add creamy milk. So, he says that you must not add creamy milk, you have to add a milk but not creamy milk. Add milk to the tea, not vice versa. So, you have to pour the tea and then you have to pour the milk, not pour the milk and vice versa. You must not make. First you have to pour the tea and afterwards you have to pour the milk. You have to remove the cream before pouring it. Add milk to tea, not vice versa. And one more thing he says, you must not add sugar. Instead of sugar, you have to take pepper and salt in the tea. So, he says 11th point, he says no sugar. Instead of sugar, you have to take pepper and salt. So, in a tea you must have a pepper and salt. So, that is the 11 points he says. What are the 11 points? Use tea from India or Ceylon, not from China. Use a teapot, preferably ceramic, then warm the pot over direct heat, then tea should be strong, 6 spoons of leaves per 1 liter, then let the leaves move round the pot, no bags or strainers. You will be having strainers and bags, you must not use that. And then take the pot to the boiling kettle. You must not bring the pot to the kettle, you have to take the kettle to the pot and you have to pour. Stir or shake the pot. Drink out of the tall mug shaped teacup. Don't add creamy milk. Add milk to the tea, not vice versa. No sugar. Instead of sugar, you will be taking pepper and salt. So, these were the 11 steps he tells, and it is a very simple prose. We will see each paragraph. So, there are so many kinds of tea. A nice cup of tea, you can see the tea leaves and top teas, peppermint, good for nausea and stomach pain, and matcha, most energy level and reduce brain fog. Hibiscus tea is there, helps high blood pressure and respiratory issue. Oolong, high in polymer milk, can help stress. And chai enhances immune system and fights inflammation. Ginger helps reduce floating and upset stomach. And chamomile, beneficial for sleep. White, highest in antioxidant. So, these were the different kinds of teas you were seeing. And see, I have given a flow chart for you. Calculate how many cups of a tea are required, and then you will be having ensuring required tools or ingredients. Then cleaning all tools, checking ingredients quality, start processing tea, prepare serving trolley maintenance, serve of manage, replace, weekly communication with purchase team of ensuring ingredient availability. So, here you can see the flow chart. When you make a tea for a company or for a big crowd, these all the things you have to take as a step. So, we will go for the lesson. if you look up tea in the first cookery book that comes to hand, you will probably find that it is unmentioned, or at most you will find a few lines of sketchy instructions which gives no ruling on several of most important points. So, here he says, George Orwell tells that if you are going for a tea in a cookery book, you will be having a steps: pour water, pour some tea powder, boil it, filter it, add milk, add sugar, have your tea. So, you will not have the same 11 points. So, he is pointing out that if you look up a cookery book, you will not find the method how to make a tea. So, that is not a good tea or a nice tea, he is telling. It is a tea, namesake a tea, it is not a nice tea, he is telling. This is curious not only because tea is one of the mainstays of civilization in this country as well as in Erie, Australia and New Zealand, but because the best manner of making it is the subject of violent disputes. So, here he says curious. What do you mean by curious? Interesting. This is interesting not only because tea is one of the mainstay of civilization. You know, civilization is there, developed, and it has lot of things. And this country as well as in Erie, Australia and New Zealand, but because the best manner of making it is the subject of violent dispute. What do you mean by dispute? There will be a quarreling. So, there will be if you ask how a nice tea must be made, each civilization will be telling their own histories and stories, and they will be giving that this is like that is like that. So, there will be a dispute, there will be a quarrel. When I look through my own recipe for the perfect cup of tea, I find no fewer than 11 outstanding points. On perhaps 2 of them there would be pretty general agreement, but at least 4 others are actually controversial. Here are my own 11 rules, every one of which I regard as golden. So, here what he says, when he took through his own recipe, he made 11 points, important points, outstanding points, which is very important to make a tea. On perhaps 2 of them there would be pretty general agreement, but at least 4 others are actually controversial. So, here he says pretty well 2 will not be accepted and 4 will be controversially accepted. Controversial means agreeable. Here are my own 11 rules, every one of which I regard as golden. So, some will not accept 2 points and some will be accepting 4 points, but I have, here the author says he has 11 points. That 11 points is very, very important, and with that 11 points how to make a nice tea is telling. So, first we will see what is the first point. First of all, one should use Indian or Ceylonese tea. So, he says that first point is you have to use Indian or Ceylonese teas, that is Sri Lanka's tea. China tea has virtues which are not to be despised nowadays. So, it is virtues. Virtues means admirable quality. China tea will be having admirable quality, but nowadays it is not considered like that. It been hated by many of them. It is economical and one can drink it without milk. So, it is economical means China tea will be drunk black tea. They will be drinking black tea and they will not have their own thing to make milk. They will not add milk. They will be having without milk. Black tea they will be having. It is economically good, but for health wise when you consider it is not good. And one can drink it without milk, but there is not much stimulation. Stimulation means excitement in it. So, when you drink tea, you must have an excitement. When you have black tea which made by China, it is not an excitement one. It is not a stimulation one. One does not feel wiser, braver or more optimistic after drinking. So, here after drinking a tea, you must feel optimistic, brave and energetic. So, that all will be missing, he says, in a black tea which China had made. Anyone who has used that comforting phrase, a nice cup of tea, invariably means Indian tea. So, if anybody says that it is a nice cup of tea, it goes that the author says that it is only an Indian tea. Invariably means Indian tea. He says that he will not accept any other tea only China, Sri Lankan tea and Indian tea. So, Sri Lankan also belong to our Indian nation. They are exporting tea leaves from here only. So, he gives important more for Indian. He says that invariably he says Indian tea is the nice cup of tea. Second point he says, secondly, tea should be made in small quantities, that is in a teapot. Tea out of an urn is always tasteless, while army tea made in a cauldron tastes of grease and whitewash. The tea should be made of china or earthenware. Silver or Britannian ware teapot produce inferior tea and enamel pots or worse. Though curiously enough, petri teapot, a rarity nowadays, is not so bad. So, here second point already I have given you. So, what use a teapot, preferably ceramic. He says the teapot must be in ceramic. Second point he says you must not use a big cauldron. No, in the military and all, number of people will be more. So, they will be making in a big cauldron or a big size vessel, and it will be creamy taste and it will not give a good quality, it will be having some creamy taste or some smell will be there, grease smell will be there. So, he says that it is not good, it is not good for that. And only he says that ceramic vessel is very good for the tea to make. Thirdly, the pot should be warmed beforehand. This is better done by placing it on the hob than by the usual method of swilling it out with hot water. So, here he says that the vessel must be put on the stove, grill stove, and it must be heated straight away. Must not pour your hot water and rinse the vessel. So, sometimes what he will do, he will not clean the vessel properly, we will be rinsing the vessel and he will keep. So, he says that third point he says, you have to keep the cleaning method also he tells very clearly. You have to keep the kettle or pot on the stove and you have to heat it and then you have to make the tea in that. Fourth point he says, fourthly, the tea should be strong for a pot holding a quarter. If you are going to fill it nearly to the brim, 6 heaped teaspoons would be about right. In a time of rationing, this is not an idea that can be realized on every day of the week, but I maintain that one strong cup of tea is better than 20 weak ones. All true tea lovers not should like their tea strong, but like it a little stronger. With each year that passes, a fact which are recognized in the extra ration issued to old age pensioners. So, the author says that he likes the stronger tea and more tea leaves must be put. So, he says that if you bear stingy to keep that, you will not have a tea. He says that better having a not good tea for daily, you can have a best tea for 1 week a day. So, he tells like that, have a best tea. So, he tells that you must not be stingy in putting the tea leaves less. You must be very broad minded to put more tea. That means 1 liter of water means 6 teaspoons of tea powder must be put in it. Okay. Fifth point he says, fifthly, the tea should be put straight into the pot, no strainer, muslin bags or other device to imprison the tea. In some countries, teapots are filtered with little dangling baskets under the spout to catch the stray leaves, which are supposed to be harmful. Actually, one can swallow tea leaves in considerable quantities without ill effect, and if the tea is not loose in the pot, it never infuses properly. So, what he says, you must not filter the tea, and sometimes you will be having a small pack of tea, you will be dipping in it, that must not be done, and there will be a dangling of filter in the tea pot itself, that must not be done. So, he says that tea pot must not be hanging a dust pot, like a small pack will be there, you will be dipping it, you must not use that, or a filter must not be made. So, without filtering the tea you have to drink, he says. Sixth point, sixthly, one should take the teapot to the kettle and not to the other way about. So, he says that one should take the teapot to the kettle and not to the other way. So, you have to take the teapot to the kettle, not the teapot near the kettle, opposite way you must not do. The water should be actually boiling at the moment of impact, which means that one should keep it on the flame while one pours. That means the teapot must be on the flame and immediately you have to take and drop, not from far away to the kitchen to the hall or some other place taking, and the heat will be reduced. That must not be taken place, he says. Some people add that one should only use water that has been freshly brought to the boil, but I have never noticed that it makes any difference. So here he says that to clean, and somebody says that it is not right way. He says that I am not for them, if they want let them do, but my way of doing is like that, he says. Seventh point, seventhly, after making the tea, one should stir it, or better give the pot a good shake, afterwards allowing the leaves to settle. So seventh point, what is saying, after making the tea one should stir it. After making the tea you have to put some lid and you have to stir it nicely, or better give the pot to a good shake. You can stir it or you can take the old pot and have a shake of it. Afterwards allowing the leaves to settle. So you have to leave some time to settle the leaves down, then you can pour the tea. Eighthly, one should drink out of the good breakfast cup. So here the choice of cup is also he is telling. He says you must not take any other shape, only cylindrical shape of cup you have to use. That is the cylindrical type of cup, not the flat shallow type. The breakfast cup holds more, and with the other kind one's tea is always half cold before one has well started on it. If you take other shape of the cup, the tea will be cold and you will not have a hot tea. So he says that use a cup which is of cylinder shape, and breakfast cup you have to use. Ninthly, one should pour the cream of the milk before using it for tea. Milk that is too creamy always gives tea sickly. So he tells that when you drink tea, if you have some cream in it, that it will be going and sticking in your tongue and all, and it will be sickly. So he feels that you must be removing the creamy before pouring the milk in the tea. And 10th point, what he says, one should pour into the cup. One should pour into the cup first. This is one of the most controversial point of all. Indeed, in every family in Britain, there are probably two schools of thought on the subject. The milk first school can bring forward some fairly strong arguments, but I maintain that my own argument is unanswerable. This is that by putting the tea in first and stirring as one pours, one can exactly regulate the amount of the milk, whereas one is liable to put it too much milk if one does it the other way around. So here what he says, you have to pour the tea and then you have to pour the milk. If you are pouring milk, your tea will be very less you will be using, so it will not be stronger. So you have to pour how much strong the tea you need, that much tea you have to pour, and then remove the creamy from the milk and you have to pour. So he says that vice versa you must not do. This is the way. If anybody is arguing, he is against of them. So it shows that his way of making tea is different, and he says that that is the right way. Lastly, the 11th point, unless one is drinking it in the Russian style, should be drunk without sugar. So what he says, the tea must be drunk in a Russian style. How? Usually all will be drinking tea with the sugar. He says that without sugar we have to drink. I know very well that I am in a minority here. So he says that here he is a minority. Most probably major people will be using tea sugar. With sugar only they will be taking. So he says that that must be avoided. So he says that he is minority in that. But still, how can you call yourself a true tea lover if you destroy the flavor of your tea by putting sugar in it? Then he says that how can you say that it is a real tea if you are adding sugar? If you are adding sugar in the tea, it is not a real tea, he says. You have to add pepper and salt and then you have to drink, or just like that without sugar you can have a tea. So he says that that is the real way of taking a tea. And if you say that you are a tea lover, then you must not add sugar in it. If you sweeten it, you are no longer tasting the tea, you are merely tasting the sugar. You should make a very simpler drink by dissolving sugar in plain hot water. So he is saying if you are adding sugar in the tea, you can drink hot water with sugar. So because the tea will be giving only the sugar taste, not the real tea taste. So his tea lover must have the tea without sugar, he is telling. Some people would answer that they don't like a tea in itself, that they only drink it in order to be warmed and stimulated, and they need sugar to take the taste away. To those misguided people, I would say, try drinking tea without sugar for say a fortnight, and it is very unlikely that you will ever want to ruin your tea by sweetening it again. So again what he is saying, some people will say that they will be drinking a tea because to get energy or some addict to it, like that they will be having for something to get energy or to stimulate their energy, like that they are saying. For them, what is the advice or suggestion the author is giving is, better try once the tea without a sugar. And last he says that these are not the only controversial point to arise in connection with tea drinking. So your connection means a relationship with something, with the human being. So here he says that he has a connection with the tea. So he likes tea and he loves it to drink. But they are sufficient to show how subtilized the whole business has become. There is also the mysterious social etiquette surrounding the teapot. Why is it considered vulgar to drink out of your saucer, for instance? So sometimes he is criticizing the people, sometimes they will be pouring tea in a saucer and they will be drinking. And what is the purpose of having a tea, he is asking a question. And much might be written about the subsidiary use of tea leaves, such as telling fortunate predicting the arrival of visitors, feeding rabbits, healing burns and sweeping the carpet. It is worth paying attention to such details as warming the pot and using water that is really boiling, so as to make quite sure of wringing out of one of the ration the 20 good strong cups of the tea, 2 ounces properly handed out to the represent. So again he tells that somebody will be saying that if you are pouring more tea leaves, it will be costly and it will not be maintained by them. Again he says that instead of having such a tea for a long time without a taste, having a tea, we can have a little tea with a taste. So he says that weekly once or 2 days once you can have a tea with a strong and without sugar. So I think you will be preparing a tea like how the author says, and you will be having your evening tea, I believe. Thank you children, we will meet you in the next class.